Hey, it's Ezra here. I recently shared a short video on Major Coleman and his thoughts about the flood. Did anyone survive the flood? And he made some astounding claims in there that have shocked many who were asking, hey, can we see the full video? So again, I want to be able to share the full video so you get it in context as well. And I'll be sharing on the back end what I believe is true and what I believe may be speculation as well, and also my thoughts on it. So I'll go straight into that video so you can actually see, did any other humans survive the flood? And I'll be sharing my comments on the end. So make sure you listen in because I have some wonderful gems I'd like to share with you as well. So let's get into this together.
Now, Major, I've been itching to get to this. What in the world is this in my stage?
This is the largest scale model of Noah's Ark in the world.
What's the story behind this thing?
Well, I needed a way to show students on a secular campus that the biblical story of creation and Noah's flood was true. And I figured that the best way to do that was to actually build the ark so they could see with their eyes how big it was and that it would easily contain every kind of animal in the world.
Professor Coleman, say someone has never ever heard of the story of Noah and the flood. Could you break down for us real quickly, what is that story all about?
Well, it was after the world had been in existence for 1,656 years, and God decided that because of their wickedness and their violence that he was going to destroy the world. And he ordered Noah to build an ark. And as you can see, that ark was 540 feet long. On its launch platform, it would have stood 100 feet wide and been 100 feet high and been 80 feet wide. And this is its size compared to modern objects that you can see today. The entire flood lasted for over a year, and it covered all the land on the entire planet.
Wow. You know, prior to me becoming a believer in the Bible, I had learned even in Hinduism about the story of a worldwide flood and how a family was preserved during that worldwide flood. Now, I heard this story exists in many different cultures. How do we know that the biblical story is the most accurate story?
Okay, well, the best way to test that, again, is with science and understand exactly how the flood happened. Before Noah's flood, there was a subterranean water chamber 60 miles down beneath the Earth's crust, which is 60 miles of granite. That water was under tremendous pressure and increasing temperature until it reached about 1,000 degrees. Once the crust cracked, it burst forth with the power of 1 trillion billion atomic bombs. Dr. Walter Brown is the one who invented hydroplate theory, and he has shown us exactly how the flood happened. What's so amazing is not that all living life was destroyed. What's so amazing is that 8 people and the animals inside the ark actually survived, and it would take a boat like this for them to survive.
So, if I'm hearing this correctly, what you do in your presentations and in your course is you take this replica of a story that's found in the book of Genesis, and you present the reasonableness of this story.
Yes, we show that it was actually could work, that it did work. The first boat in the world that was actually built larger than Noah's Ark was probably the most famous ship, and that was the Titanic. It was the first boat that was ever built that was larger than Noah's Ark.
And that boat sunk.
Yes, and it sunk, but Noah's Ark did not sink. It actually survived. And when you can see this, when I say this is the largest authentic model of Noah's Ark was not made out of lumber. It was made out of hewn logs and put together with wooden posts. The walls were 3 feet thick. Okay, there's no such thing as a 540-foot long tree today. So you cannot build a full-size model of Noah's Ark. This is the largest correct-to-scale model that exists.
So I'm sure a lot of skeptics ask you this question, and that is this. Wait a minute. All the life that exists in our world today, that's all the animals, that's all the birds, the land animals.
Yes.
All of that came from Noah's Ark. How in the world did God fit all those animals upon this boat?
Well, if you look at an encyclopedia of life forms, there are 90 genus forms of life that exist now. The average size, so 90 different kinds. If you count those 90 different kinds of animals and you take the largest species in every genus, By the time you get to the middle one, number 45, you're down to the size of a rat. There were 15,000 animals on the ark, and the average size, even if you include a brachiosaurus, almost 70 feet long, 110,000 pounds, the average size on the animal of an animal on the size of the ark was the size of a rat. So Noah could have had 15,000 rat-sized animals and cages on the ark. The total volume of the ark was 2.2 million cubic feet. 15,000 cages, 4 cubic feet, would take up about 25% of the space on the ark. So most of it was empty.
Wow. Wow, that's incredible.
Most of it was empty.
And so when Noah's Ark landed in those mountains, what I'm hearing from you is those kinds or those family groups, they went out and they began to multiply and fill the world. Is that correct?
Yeah, so if you have different kinds of animals or genus of animals, that is, you can have different species that come from that. So for instance, wolves, coyotes, dingoes, foxes, they are all dogs, okay? Right. So you would only need one type of dog on the ark. That would be 4 dogs, 2 males, 2 females, that could produce all those different species, and the same things with the other animals.
Let me ask you this question, which is, why are you so interested in this biblical story as opposed to any other biblical story?
Well, that is because, first of all, Jesus believed in the flood model, and it's the basis for the entire authenticity of the Bible. If you can prove that the Genesis story is false, you have destroyed the entire belief system on which Christianity is based. So that's why we use this model to show people that Noah's Ark was real and that the story is true.
All right, so we will actually stop it right there. And what I'll do as well is towards, in the description below, I will put the link to the full video. That's the main part. He spoke about the ark. He went into evolution and other aspects, which is very interesting as well. But let me share my comments on this, because one thing I do believe in the Bible. So again, biblically speaking, the ark and the flood and everything that took place is a biblical fact. And our science have also, in many circumstances, I believe, have proven that there was, in fact, a worldwide flood. And I know in the past short that I had, many individuals were commenting whether it was regional or whether it was worldwide. And I'm going to get to that and some of that, but I do want to go over some aspects. So I believe it's a biblical fact that the flood was indeed had taken place. It's also a biblical fact that there were 8 people that actually survived the flood who were all on the ark, and everyone else who were outside the ark were lost, right? So I believe those to be biblical facts. There are many things that, the Bible actually mentioned that did take place. However, of course, in this video, there are, of course, speculative ways of how it could have happened. And, I respect someone's opinion on what they think of how it could have taken place. And that's fine. However, I personally don't like going into what I think. If God left certain things out of the Bible, then it didn't pertain to our salvation. The Bible says that it gives us that which is necessary for our salvation. You find that in 2 Timothy, right? So one of the principles is this. It's like, okay, speculation is something I really stay away from, but I do respect people's thoughts and ideas, but I wouldn't teach it as something that is fundamentally an accurate depiction of history. And I think in the short, a lot of people probably felt that way. So it's not. Like, I know he mentioned that, okay, there was, he mentioned a lot of descriptions that I can't even really reword to you or to relay that again, but about 1,000 degrees in the water, the subterranean chamber, and all of those details that was going on with the trillion billion atomic bomb sort of power effect, and all those other fanciful things. I mean, really and truly, we know that the flood won. I think what is fundamentally true is that it was catastrophic. It was demolishing, devastating, destroy the earth. But in terms of the precise mileage and speed and everything else, that information is not in the Word of God. It's left out. And I personally would also leave it out from, in relaying that to someone. But I respect someone's process of how it could have happened, but it's in no way a doctrinal position or something that you should take as substantially or fundamentally true. So just wanted to cover that, right? So that's what we call speculation. Also, I guess one of the reasons why he's also mentioning about the different animals and how a lot of them could have been small and fit into the ark, I think is also a good point. It may not necessarily all been small rat-sized animals, like he said, because there actually is quite a lot of space for even way bigger sized animals into the ark. But I think to add to him what he's saying is just really sort of trying to allow more sense to be made of how a lot of the animals that exist today could have actually been and fit into the ark. And it makes a lot of sense. I was able to visit one of the replicas, that was sort of built in Kentucky area by Answers in Genesis, Kevin Ham and his team. I think they did a pretty good job in terms of a lot of plausible things of how the ark could have been and how all the animals could have fit in there. So those are all plausible things. However, it's in no way something that is concrete and true. What we do know for sure is the animals were in the ark. How it happened, the details, of course, there are possible scientific explanations of how it happened, which is great, which just shows the efficacy of it, and it could have happened in multiple ways. Now, what he's mentioning is one way. There are potentially many other ways it could have happened, and that's the main point I think we should really take from it, is that it's a highly possible thing, and that for the ark to actually house all the different kinds of animals. And that's very important, because that's what the Bible says. Each kind of animal, you had the unclean by the twos and the cleans by seven. There's a distinction between the two. And of course, there's way less kinds of animals, like you mentioned, even the dog kind and so forth, that many of those came from. So I don't believe there was a poodle on Noah's Ark, or there wasn't a German Shepherd. I mean, all those actually came from a particular kind of animal that has been over time, continued on and domesticated as well into what we have today. So I think that's very good points. So that he mentioned. One thing I really wanted to stress on is people's idea that, okay, did 8 people actually really survive the flood? Because he spoke about how could the people survive such a powerful flood. And he described it in ways, of course, that may seem, or that is very speculative. And besides that point, I mean, the flood was worldwide. It wasn't a regional flood, like many believe. And I'm going to share with you 3 different reasons why I believe also that it was a worldwide flood. And I think it's very important to note those things as well. Now, in the book of Genesis chapter 7, verses 19 to 20, this is what it tells us. It says, and the waters prevailed exceedingly upon the earth, and all the high hills that were under the whole heaven, it says, were covered 15 cubits upward. It says, did the waters prevail, and the mountains were covered. So notice that it's basically describing that the mountains were covered 15 cubits upward. So from the tallest mountain you get to 15 cubits above that would be the flood. Now, with that enormity of water, I guess one of the things very important to notice there, with such an enormity of water, then it had to have been something that would have been more worldwide. It's an indication of something that was worldwide. So if the flood had not been covered by the mountains by at least such a depth, then also the ark could not have floated over them during the entire 5 months that it was, actually upon the water, which you find in Genesis chapter 7 as well. So another indication, besides from such depth of water, way higher than, certain mountain, which means that it could not have just been confined to just a localized area, is another indication was that the flood was universal, is the necessity of an ark, right? Now, God told Noah to build an ark, and there's a reason for that. In Genesis chapter 7, verse 3, the reason why God told him to build an ark was that it says to keep seed alive upon the face of all the earth. So the reason for Noah building an ark was to keep the seed alive. Now, question, if it was just a regional ark, why wouldn't Noah, like he told Abraham before time, go to a land that I will show you, that both you and your seed may be preserved. But in fact, Noah had to build an ark because it wasn't just regional, one of the other indications. Else, God would have simply told Noah, just go to another country, this region will be flooded, just travel to another location. That would have been a lot easier and simpler, right? Final evidence I will mention, which I think is also a very powerful one, is the universe of a universal flood, worldwide flood, the extent of a worldwide flood, is the rainbow covenant that was given in Genesis chapter 9, verses 8 to 17, where the rainbow was a promise that God would never send such a flood to destroy the earth again. Now, if it was just a regional flood, then wouldn't that defeat God's promise, and wouldn't his promise be broken to us? Because from since then, how many regional floods have we had? We've had lots of tsunamis and huge floodings in many countries and locations. So if it was a regional flood, then this promise would have been broken by God. And we know God doesn't break his covenants. He doesn't break his promises. So it had to have been something of worldwide extent, because God promised he will not send such again. And he has not, because since there haven't been any sort of worldwide flood. So I just wanted to be able to cover those things with you. There's a lot more I can share in this topic, and I think it's a very interesting topic. However, the information that was given in the Bible in Genesis, start reading from Genesis 5, Genesis 6, all the way to Genesis 9. And let's be content with what was given. Of course, we can still be able to, see scientific reasoning behind things. And I think that helps individuals who may be more skeptical. I think that's great. But the Bible stands. And, I believe what it says is true. And thankfully, there are lots of science that actually backs it up today. However, we don't need science to be able to really affirm that the Bible is true. The Bible is true on its own. Science, it only just helps in making it more apparent to many of us sometimes that may be sort of blinded to the reality of the biblical truths. So again, I encourage each and every one of you to be able to continue to study, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you have any particular questions, I'll be more than happy to do a follow-up video with that as well. But make sure you hit that subscribe button. I'd love to stay connected with you. And until next time, let's continue to be able to follow the Lord and his footsteps. So I pray that you may have a wonderful rest of your day. All right, blessings. Goodbye.